Hello, my love. It's my birthday. So I want to give you a gift that I spent, about 15 hours pulling out of the universe for myself, and hopefully I can give back to you. Felt like a huge gift to me. And if my work has gifted you anywhere or everywhere in your life at some point, whether it's this video or another, I invite you to buy me a coffee on my Buy Me a Coffee link or a beach house or, a cold plunge or whatever you feel like buying me. No, I shouldn't say that. Not whatever you feel like buying me. Anyway, I'd be super happy to receive from a place of fullness because I'm sure you can relate to being a person who only knows how to receive when you are down and out or when you are have all these voids to fill. And then when you're like a whole person, it's scary when you spent your life filling voids that you didn't even feel like were worthy of being filled, and you'll constantly have like a grave and like had to put dirt in it and like tend to that site constantly just to get on the ground, to then build on top of that, or to expand in the horizontal as a whole person and to receive as a whole person instead of a half a person, is a transition that I'm coming into. And I would love to be reflected that you receive me in my wholeness, and that you would want to also give to me in my wholeness, not just my, persistent sense of like brokenness that wants to help everybody else who's broken and pull all of us together so that we can be a whole together. Um, Individuating and becoming whole has been the biggest gift I could have ever given to myself. And I feel literally reborn in that sense. And that is what I want to talk about today, not being reborn in it is literally a spiritual sense, but I want to talk about um, narcissism, individuation, and um, anything else that happens given the dynamics of what it would be like to be raised by a narcissist. And I come from a lineage of that. So I came across material that blew my brains out. And it's me. Like I get constantly reflected, like, oh my God, you blew my mind. If I would have read this book when I started my YouTube channel, I would have had, and maybe it's great that I didn't, but the most concise framework of what I've been trying to say. And I am so glad that this person said it. And of course, it's like at the right time where I can go, this is what I've been trying to say. And this is what I've been also personally advocating for in myself and my own work. Um, this idea that I really have individuated and or emancipated myself from an object that's always trying to get in, right? The invasion of narcissistic abuse. That's why you're like, oh, I'm so used to having holes and then I have to fill them. And then I'm just always at baseline, but like I'm never allowed to be beyond that. Having an object in your field that is not one of your parts to be integrated, it is not part of yourself. It is another, I don't know what you want to call it. You could call it a virus, a program, you could call it whatever you want, but it is the remnants of unprocessed other that sticks to you and hosts on you like a parasite psychically. This is a real phenomenon. This is not me, oh, this is what it feels like. This is what it is. And this is what I've been trying to convey to my own healer. I will not accept this part. This is not a part of me. My issue is I have accepted it as me, and it's not. So I want to talk about that part in the psyche of somebody who was raised by narcissists. So, and I want you to know that this book, it's called Echoism. It's very clinical, but it is amazing. The Silenced Response to Narcissism by Donna Christina Savory. If you took every one of my YouTube channels and condensed it into a clinical text, it would have saved me hundreds of hours of creating content. So mind blown. So I want to first and foremost say that I'm going to interpret in my own experience and my own way of being. As you know, I've talked about this for years on YouTube, what I'm pulling out of this that is relevant to myself and to what might be relevant to you in the way that I can see it. So some of the things I'm about to say are my own context, not hers. The book is fabulous. But some of the things are also going to be based on like, yes, those are the words that I've been trying to say, right? So there's a very condensed way of having the word. So one of the things that she talks about is that narcissists, they blend, and again, this is the way I'm experiencing it, so I don't want to put words in her mouth, right? Like, don't take it out of context. They will blend with their ideal image. So that's why they always have to be right. That's why, despite external reality, they still feel justified in believing that they are their ideal image. A healthy person has a separation between an ideal image that they would motivate to maybe live up to. Narcissists don't have that. They already believe that they have arrived. When you are raised by a narcissist, when they are dominant in this, like, I am the subject and I also am the only self that's allowed in the room, but at the same time, there's no actual self in the vacuum that they're talking about because they're blended with an ideal image that doesn't actually exist on the ground in reality, which is scary because it's like they walk around and you wouldn't know that about somebody. They're blended with an ideal image of themselves that is not grounded in reality. When you are raised by that person, you become just merely an object. And this was always something that I couldn't explain to people enough. Like in my family system, and I come from a line of farmers, humans were treated like animals and they didn't treat their animals very nicely. You were an object in whoever was the allowed subject's purview. That's it. So when you are raised to be an object, you then learn to objectify your actual self, which is wildly dangerous because there's a split that is not even a split in your parts from yourself. There's a split that is not yourself that claims dominion. And this is why I always just like, you got to claim the inner narcissist. But I didn't realize that the half the problem with that is, again, I was like reiterating what people were reiterating to me in the sense that like I was saying something bold at the time. Like you have to claim that that is in there. But I think now I realize like what we have to understand is that we've been claimed by that. And that is the problem. We have to emancipate ourselves by that which claimed us. And the sad part about that is anybody who's my demographic has never truly been claimed. And that's the problem. And I mean that in a three-dimensional embodied sense, right? But we have been claimed by an internal narcissist that we have introjected. So in this book, Donna says that and again, this is I'm going to make this my interpretation. But she talks about how when babies are born, there is no individuation. I'm a mother of four, right? Like I breastfed all of my children. You are completely that being's container. And I often talk about containment, self-containment, contained container dynamics are required for an infant. And what that means is that you, as the infant, should be able to rage against, I'm hungry, I'm uncomfortable, I just came into the planet, there's bright lights, there's sounds, like you should be able to rage about reality in a way that you have a parent who has the capacity to be present enough to metabolize your rage, transmute it the way that I would do with my clients, and then hand it back in a form that could be internalized that wasn't so harsh. That's the mother-infant container-contained relationship. And I experience this when I hear this and feel this in my body, is that almost, so I see it like this, okay? If we went totally Freudian psychology for a second, if I put in a vertical sense, and a lot, just so you know, we have to heal in the relational realm and the horizontal, right? But from a vertical perspective, I see the id here, the ego here, the superego here. The id is your impulses, your human drives to have sex, to eat, to kill, to, do whatever you want as a human, to like make sure that your territory is protected at all costs, okay? This is your id. It's your inner animal, kind of. When you are a baby, That's really all you got. You're the mammal, right? So your rage, your, I can't move and I'm pissed. You're like, I need somebody and that's annoying because they're not coming. All of those things, when met with a healthy ego of a parent who then goes, okay, I understand what it's like to be a baby. Being a human is really complicated. And I know you don't have the capacity to contain yourself. So I will help you do that by holding you, receiving these projections of rage, angst, helplessness, all of the feelings that especially narcissists do not want to feel. A healthy parent would feel them, receive them, transmute them, and then hand them back to be introjected by that infant in a way that they could metabolize after it was already kind of digested by the parent, right? Energetically speaking. So the ego is the part in which, if you think of like the container, okay, say you have a super ego up here and say you're just a full cup, right? This might be your id. This open space might be your super ego. The water inside would be your ego. The way that I experience this text, or my own experience, and that this text put into like a context, was that if you project all of your id into the air and rage, 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 and there's nothing containing it, it's all up in the super ego, because I don't have a parent who has an actual healthy ego. They're attached to this ideal image of themselves that's beyond reality even, and also beyond approach. When we project that and it has nowhere to go and it's not metabolized by an ego that has three-dimensional fleshy capacity to hand it back to us in a way that can be metabolized by the mammal, our id gets stuck inside of our superego, up in the ethers. That's why when I first went to a shaman, she's like, wow, you're not even on the ground. You're literally 3 feet above your body. And somebody said in a YouTube video today, which I appreciate, it wasn't exactly the context of what I was talking about, but they said that any being who says that I am driven, I don't drive, has the potential, if they're not aligned with Christ, to have other beings who are not aligned with Christ be in the driver's seat. Fair. I hear that, right? So if we are being theoretically driven and never, here's the problem with people raised by narcissists. We never developed the liquid of being human, the realness of reality. We were always, you have to be here to be deserving of reality, right? Which is, you have to be your ideal self. You have to agree with my ideal self. And if you don't, and you dismiss that I am this thing that you want me, like I'm trying to make you believe, even though I'm not this thing, if you do that, you get no substance whatsoever, right? If you do not align to the shared fantasy that this person who's all the way like up here, right, is what they say that they are, right? And they are the ultimate authority. But then when you are not a person who becomes a narcissist because you haven't blended with your ideal image, you have this ideal image that you're supposed to live up to, that is their ideal image of you, that's inside of your head like an object. This is why I keep saying it's not a part of me. It's not like, I know my parts, dude. Like, this is not it. And I keep trying to protect my own healer from this part. And I will continue to do so because it is always, I would never give that part a voice. That's what I want to say. And in my own work, she's like, give it a voice. And I'm like, nah, dude, like, no, because it's not my voice. And my problem is a lot of my life, I've been suggested, like, oh, give that part a voice. And sure, I could aspire to be my like super ideal self. And this part's always saying, oh, you're a piece of shit. This part thinks I'm a piece of shit if I grow at all as a healthy ego, if I'm at all in my humanity, which is I could spill this all over the desk, it'd be a huge mess right now, right? That's reality of living in a three-dimensional existence. It's messy, right? There is substance that gets messy. In a narcissist, that's not allowed. And in a child raised by a narcissist, the presence of that substance would very likely be taunted. So it's almost not worth it to have it. And besides, you never had a parent who had any of this contain you and teach you how to be contained inside of a container. You didn't deserve that unless you were totally your ideal image. And when you are your totally ideal image, you're absolutely ungrounded from reality. And that's where they want you. And that's where you get confused about, am I a narcissist? Because the second you start to go in here and you go, oh, wait, I got some substance here. That superego object that they want you to blend within yourself so that they can feel better about raising you, to not be an actual person, but to be their object or their minion or an extension of the image that they want for themselves, using you to be that. When you don't have a model for how to metabolize reality, you don't got any liquid, right? So you can see the container and then you might be like, shit, man, I need to get into a container. Somebody else is. I got to live through somebody else who's totally absent of themselves, right? Because there won't be enough room for both of you in there. So when we have an internalized narcissistic object that is badgering the self constantly, I mean, I get physically afraid when I raise my hand and say something in public, when I set a boundary, when I anything that requires me, which is weird. You might look at me and be like, Stace, you're obviously exactly who you are. You say whatever the fuck you want on YouTube, right? Doesn't mean it doesn't absolutely scare the shit out of me, right? Because I still have this, and it's funny because I'm kind of locking it out the way that it locked me out my whole life. And I can see it banging on the door the way I used to bang on the door. Let me in, what did I do? It knows what it did, and it wants to keep me small. And that's the weird thing. Like, my healer will say, oh, you know, all of this part wants to protect you. No, it absolutely doesn't. It wants to protect itself by making me stay small and not acquiring what is required to be the substance of a healthy, mature ego. A healthy, mature ego has the container, has the liquid, and has the super ego above it that could, you know, dump in information. Hey, you could change this way, you could change that way. But when you have your id stuck in your super ego, because nothing was ever transmitted back to you in a digestible way, where you feel like, oh my God, I'm a burden if I have a need. I have to just be perfect and totally not depend on anybody at all, because that would make me a person. I don't think people who weren't raised like this can understand that, like, you're not allowed to be a person. And that might look really weird from the outside because they might look really successful. That you might be like, oh my God, they have this thing, they have that thing, the mom, the dad, like, but they might not be allowed to be a person. They might have to stay a vacuum inside of themselves, and they might be belittling themselves and badgering themselves constantly every time they even become a person. So my work with people is generally to help them accept regularity, to be a person that doesn't have to strive to be perfect, to be their ideal image of themselves. It might be inspirational, but the thing is, you can see your ideal self separate from your actual self. And if you can't, that's a problem, right? Because everybody's got some, you know, something that they could see that would make them probably more enlightened or whatever. But being raised by a narcissist requires that you exit body, that you are always, this is the way that I would say it, like, narcissists blend with their object of their ideal self. Others of us feel the need to defend ourselves from the object of our ideal self. And that creates a war in our head, right? Because it's like, it's always, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. And then there's this other part that's like, dude, other people relax. Other people like live normal lives. Other people just be people. But I have this object in my head that feels like a robot constantly screaming at me to be more like a machine than a person. And that is something that my sentience cannot identify as myself. Don't even bark. Oh, there he goes. Okay. I thought he was gonna start going nuts at the mailman. Anyway, our work, children raised of that. And it's also so sad because as a generational recipient of this, I want to save every single person in my lineage who's been affected by this, whether they turned out to be a narcissist or a codependent. Because I see so deeply how this runs in families. So our work is to understand that when we become more of a person, we're going to really, and this is where it's dangerous because we'll find people in the external to exploit this tendency in ourselves, but you're going to feel like a narcissist for taking up any space in your own container. You're going to, and the people who benefited from you being selfless are going to call you selfish. The people who benefited from you being, just that way, whatever that is, you're going to lose them. Congratulations. You're going to emancipate yourself and feel insanely lonely because this interior object that really secretly hates you for being a person, when you no longer identify with it in the inside, you won't allow it in the outside. So our work is to know that what's coming when we become is that you're going to feel when you become the subject of your own reality like a narcissist because you are no longer merely an object. And our work, as far as I can see, and what I've been trying to say for a while to my own healer is I have to individuate from this thing in my head that lives long after the actual separation in reality. I cannot claim it as myself because it has claimed me as itself, and that's what narcissists do. Take all your ideas, pretend to be you, dress like you, try to brand like you. They'll try to take you right out of yourself and then punish you when you won't let them. When you have an internal object like that, you don't have to think it is a part of you, because I think that was the thing. I was like, if I can claim this, then I can, command it. But it's a commanding bitch who claimed me years ago, and I'm a loyal dog. So I have to be a dog that knows how to bite back, even in my own psyche, and say, no, you're not me. And actually, even if you're suffocating out in outer space, which is what this feels like right now, like, let me in your bubble. I feel disloyal. I want to go save it. I want to open the door. I want to bring it in. And I have to watch something that I was very loyal to and believed had my best interest at heart my whole life suffocate on my watch. That goes against everything in me to do. But I have to understand that it is trying to siphon me out of me. And if I love me, I have to protect me from that thing which will tell me all day that it's protecting me, and nobody will love me like it loves me, and nobody will take care of me like it takes care of me, and nobody will call me on my shit like it calls me on my shit, and blah, blah, blah. Nobody will tolerate me the way it tolerates me. The thing is intolerable. And it keeps me very, very quiet, and not in a peaceful way on the inside, but a silenced way, an oppressive way, a way that, like, I have learned, and this is what I loved about this book, like the way that she defines it. It's funny, in human design, I'm a projector. I have to be invited in. Like I've never initiated a hug once in my life. I would not, like, I have to be invited, even like the things that I do on YouTube. Like, people asked me to do videos, people asked me to do summer camps, people asked me to be in business. Like, I have to be invited to do things. But I am not really a projector. I am an introjector. I will think you're objectifying me because that's what I'm used to. And then in order to stay safe, I will introject your projections of me. And then I have this added work of going, okay, this is their projection of me. I introjected it. How do I not be like the introject? Or how do I soothe? If it's a good introject, how do I soothe the introject? How do I make sure I stay that way? If it's a bad introject, how do I make sure I don't be that way? Or how do I deal with my internal responses to knowing that, like, I can't control the bad introject? And now I'm feeling myself as bad because somebody else saw me as bad because I never had the opportunity, kind of like on the breast, to project back, right? It's like I'm just introjecting all of this material and believing in it more than I believe in myself. I have no idea what that's about. Um, but I didn't really have the capacity, and I still struggle with it, to project. I'm always like, oh, I can see my shadow. I can see what's going on. I'm self-aware for both of us. Like, I'm always the one over here. Like, I don't really project a lot of stuff onto people. And if I do, I will name that that's what I'm doing, right? What I do know how to do is introject. So I know how to basically be, how do I say this? I mean, it's energetically, it feels like bulimia, right? Um, I know how to take it in and take it to the toilet. I would never take it to somebody else. That feels real lonely, right? So when you don't have the capacity to feel safe enough to kind of project back out into the world, you feel scared. And that's the thing I was saying last week in my own session. Like, I don't, you could look at me and be like, you obviously tried to do this. You want to have impact on the world. Like, no, I'm scared. I want to have the most quiet footprint in the world, right? Like, I want to just be buried under a tree and, like, never, like, I don't want a tombstone. I don't want to take up a lot of space. Like, I don't want to have impact, because things that impacted me were like craters to my selfhood. And I can only imagine that that's what impact is, right? So, um, my demographic, we know how to introject, and then we know how to metabolize. But the problem with us is we might keep the introject, we might keep what we metabolized of somebody else's that is rightfully theirs to be metabolized, and we might not give it back to them and make them responsible with the transformation of what we have metabolized for them, and now go, okay, I can hand this back to you right now. Which is kind of what I felt like I had to do with my mom, the last text that I sent her. Like, I can't carry you anymore. I can't do this. Like, okay, I've transmuted enough. Here, you have to take it from here. It should have been the other way around. It wasn't. That's fine. But we will internalize, and a narcissist will externalize. But we also have to realize that we have internalized the narcissist, and its orientation is inward toward the self. And it's not really a part that wants yourself to grow. It's actually a part that is jealous of yourself, that hates yourself, that wants you to identify as it. It's using you, and you believe that it's your voice, or it's something to attain. It's not, it's an asshole. It's a complete bully that's ungrounded from reality and just hates humanity. It is above humanity because it's not in the container, right? And if you're not dead and you're not in your container, that's a serious fucking problem. But if you're not in your container and you don't even know you're not in your container, like a narcissist who kind of is dead, also you create problems for everyone else, right? So either you're going to have a problem or you're going to create problems. If you don't have that awareness of the container contained relationship and the life experience to be modeled substance within it and to have substance be metabolized and then handed back to you. Like the other day, I know this is long, sorry, but I spoke up for my kid. There's a kid who just ran up to him, started playing with him, but like he was in his own imaginary world, right? I mean, he's a kid, but like this is what narcissists do. So I'm not claiming him as that, but I do, like, I saw this thing where like he just was pretending that my son had something. This kid was playing the game with himself. My son was purely an object. He was not a person, right? And the kid runs up to him, and my son's not even playing the game. He's kind of running from him. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're trying to pretend I have something I don't have. And he grabs my son, and my son falls on the concrete. And I say, like, that's not okay. Please don't ever do that again. And the kid looks all like scared. And then I look up and his mom's looking at me. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said something. Oh, why did I say something? I can't be myself. I come home and I'm like, why did I say something? And Chris is like, well, why did you say something? Like most of the time you might be helicoptering. I'm like, I wasn't helicoptering. What's going on? Why did I say something? And then Chris goes, well, did you ask him if he was hurt? And I said, no, I could tell that he didn't like it. Like I didn't need to ask him that. So I was like, you know what? I will. Great, great. I'm going to go ask him. I said, I asked my son, did you like that were you hurt? He said a little bit. And I said, did you like that I stuck up for you? Or did you feel like you didn't want me to do that because you were just playing with your friend? And I didn't say it like this, obviously, but I said it like, a 6-year-old can receive it. And he said, I felt better because you said something. And I had to bring back to Chris because Chris is more like, hey, like, let them figure it out. He's a kid. And I'm like, dude, I modeled for him that it's okay to say what's true and still be safe, right? Because when you're raised by narcissists, you say what's true, you're in danger. That is a danger zone, right? I don't want my kid to get that message, even from a 7-year-old, right? So Chris is more of the ilk, like, oh, let the kids like handle that. And I'm like, how are they gonna handle that when they don't have any adults? When I look over at his mom going like, this just happened. Like, I like his mom also. She didn't say anything. And I could go, oh, well, maybe it's only her place. But it's like, I would have said that to my kid. I would say to any kid that I saw do that to another kid because I have a moral code, right? So even just having a voice that is self or like truly protective of those that I love makes me feel like I'm in danger. I come home and I'm like, what did I, oh my God, was my kid gonna lose friends? Like there's a sky gonna fall. And then when my kid says to me, I felt safer. And then I was like, wow, that's the piece I was missing my whole entire life, right? I remember my friend Echo, maybe I shouldn't say her name, but she told me when we were kids that her mom went into an elementary school and lost her shit on a teacher for like being disrespectful to her. And I was like, first of all, at the time, I was like, wow, her mom must be like insane, but also that's amazing. Because my mom would always be like, well, what'd you do? That's your problem. You must have done something wrong. Obviously, you're blah, 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 blah. I have become the parent who models containment, even though it's uncomfortable for me to do it because I feel selfish for doing it, right? But I have to do it for myself and for my kids. So I've become like her mom, which is interesting. Not like losing my shit, obviously, but like, yeah, I want to model that, like, you're allowed to have a self that says, I wasn't even playing that game, that knows that, like, you're in a totally different world, a game of your own. And like, I don't want to play that game. My son didn't want to play that game. My son didn't know any of the rules. Like his friend was like literally in his head making up a game. My son was a video game to him at that time. I want my son to have a distinction from reality and from somebody else's fantasy. And that is what I modeled for him in that moment. So I taught him containment. And I hope that he felt like I protected his substance in that moment. Rather than just let him hang in with like, oh, I'm supposed to be up here in this guy's game that I'm supposed to be this object in. And like, I don't even know what's going on, but I'm going to chase him around because to stay connected, that's what you do. You stay in other people's fantasies, not on the planet. So our work, emancipate from the inner object. That's not a part of ourselves to be integrated. And if you can, I mean, this is a book, it's